the list of the 500 largest companies in the United States. Out of these 500, can you guess how many are led by women CEOs? The answer is 37. 37 out of 500. That's only 7.4%. To many of us, it isn't even much of a surprise anymore. In so many parts of the world, the concept of leadership is so masculine that many people struggle to name one female business leader. So I'm going to give you all a small test. Can you name a female business leader in tech? Did you think of Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube? Did you think of Sheryl Sandberg, CEO of Facebook? Now, if you couldn't do that, try naming a famous male business leader in tech. Did you think of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Reed Hastings, Jeff Bezos, Satya Nadella, Bill Gates? Chances are you were able to name famous male business leaders so much easier than you were able to name famous female business leaders in tech. Don't worry, you're not alone. In a survey of 1,000 Americans, 92% of respondents couldn't come up with an answer. And a quarter of the remaining 8% came up with responses like Siri and Alexa. Clearly, there's a problem here. But why? First, let's take a look at the differences between male and female leadership. If there are so many more male leaders, that must be because they just have a better leadership style, right? Well, according to several different sources, males and females have two distinct leadership styles. Females tend to be transformational leaders, which means it's not as much about the results as it is about teamwork and helping each of their followers grow. Imagine a leader who doesn't just sit in their office all day, but who frequently visits their team members, giving them tips, advice, and guidance. Males, on the other hand, tend to be transactional leaders. This is more of the old school style of leadership. They tend to be more dominant, strict, and they're about the results. Imagine the leader who sits in their office and gives out orders, expecting employees to come back to them with results and updates. Most of these articles tend to say that women are more empathetic and caring leaders, while men tend to be more strict and straightforward leaders. But everything I just said about these two different leadership styles is very general and very stereotypical. It doesn't apply to everyone. Not all females are going to lead the same way, and not all males are going to lead the same way. Leadership is more about skills and personality, definitely not your gender. So I think it's safe for us to say that gender and differences in leadership styles and gender is not one of the limiting factors of women in leadership. So what else? Let's take a look at a different factor, bias, specifically unconscious bias. Typically, top executives will pick their successors based on themselves. They'll pick people who are similar to them in age, in style, in industry experience, and you guessed it, in gender. This is what people call the mini-me syndrome, and that's where leaders, when they pick successors, tend to favor those who are similar to themselves. Oftentimes, leaders do this unconsciously. They don't even notice that they do this. What does this mean? This means that current male leaders will pick future male successors. There's little room for females in between. Women also tend to be hired and promoted based on their past accomplishments, while men tend to be hired and promoted based on their future potential. A Leanin and McKinsey & Company survey of 132 companies and 34,000 employees found that women who negotiate are 30% more likely than men who negotiate to receive negative feedback, that they're too intimidating, aggressive, and bossy. Just like what I said about the differences between male and female leadership, males are expected to be more aggressive. So when they negotiate and raise their voice for things like this, they tend to receive little downside for it. Women, on the other hand, are supposed to be nurturing and caring. They're supposed to care about the team and not themselves. So when they negotiate and raise their voice, they're seen very negatively. So now that we know that bias is one of the main limiting factors of women in leadership, let's take a look at another factor. Lack of self-confidence and belief is also one of the big limiting factors. Self-perception and self-confidence is one of the things that female leaders say they struggle with the most. To give you an idea of what I mean, Jerry Elliott, a former senior executive of Juniper Networks, told a story where a presenter asked a group of men and women whether they had any expertise in breastfeeding. Immediately after he asked the question, a male raised his hand, saying that he watched his wife breastfeed for 3 months. The women and mothers in the crowd didn't come forward as experts despite breastfeeding themselves. Women tend to be harder on themselves, while men tend to exaggerate their confidence. Whenever applying for a position, women will tend to hesitate for something, while men tend to have more self-confidence and just go for it. Because of this lack of self-confidence, women tend to miss out on great opportunities. So in the end, there are countless of reasons why there are so little women in female leadership. But that doesn't mean it can't change. 20 years ago, there were only 2 female CEOs in the Fortune 500. 2 years ago, there were 24. Last year, there was 33. Now, there are 37. A Rockefeller Foundation initiative is aiming for 100 female leaders in the Fortune 500 by 2025. That's 20%. A 12.6% increase from our current 7.4%. Now, what does this tell me? That we're aiming too high, we're being too ambitious, that we need more time, that current young females like me aren't able to reach those top leadership positions. No. It tells me that while we've got a long way to go, we shouldn't give up. Thank you.